Hey everybody, Cynic's Pipe Dream here, and in this video I'm going to go over all the tips and tricks you need to know to win the Atlas Earth Racing minigame. Racer is considered by a lot of the dedicated players as the easiest minigame to actually play, since all it requires is 4 button presses per race and then you're done. However, knowing when to press the shift button is what separates a top 100 player from a top 25 or podium player. I'll be giving a description of how I personally time my shifts, and it should generally work for everyone else for the most part. However, the main thing you need to keep in mind is that your optimal shift points depend heavily on your connection. It might be a little later than mine, or it might be a little earlier than mine. So without further delay, let's get into how you start. Racer is the only Atlas minigame as of now that you have to make an input during the countdown. During the countdown, simply hold down on the shift button and your needle will start to rise up. And contrary to common sense, a perfect start is not what you want. You do not actually want your needle to be in the green when the countdown gets to 0. Oh, by the way, Racer is the most broken out of all the minigames, so expect more of this. Anyway, as long as your needle is within this range by the end of the countdown, your start is the best that it can possibly be. I personally like to start holding down the shift button a little bit after the 2 shows up, and then release my finger as soon as I start moving. Or you can also just hold down on 1 and that'll be fine too. The game saying good or bad doesn't matter and has no effect on your actual start. Basically, as long as you press any time after 3 and before 0, you'll have a perfect start. Now let's get into the actual important part of the gameplay, your 4 shifting positions. Shifts register as soon as you push down on the button, so you do not want to try to hold down on it like you did for the start. You'll want all 4 of your shifts to be within this green area at the end of your speedometer. But where the needle is within the green area is extremely important. Your first shift you'll want to be towards the top half of the green area, just at or slightly past the top tick. Your second shift you'll want to be right around the middle of the green area. Your third shift you'll want right at the end on the border of the green and red, either just before the needle starts to bounce or after 1 bounce. In your fourth and arguably most important shift, you'll want your needle to bounce multiple times at the end, around 3 times. Let me quickly explain what I'm talking about when I mean a bounce. A needle bounce is what happens when your needle is at the threshold between the green and red areas. Your needle will never actually enter the red area, but it'll begin to bounce if it has reached that point where you're at the very end of the green. So bounces on your third and fourth shifts are good, while bounces on your first and second shifts are bad. Also, the speed at which your needle rises slows down after each subsequent shift. So before your first shift, it'll be going really fast, before your second it'll slow down slightly, before the third even slower, and before the fourth even slower still. You'll get used to judging when you press based on the needle speed and the more you play. Here's a video example of what I consider a good round for me. Pay attention to where I'm shifting here. Also, I tend to find that if my third shift is slightly early, such as a little bit before the threshold, the fourth shift needs to be just before a bounce or after only 1 bounce, so slightly earlier. Similarly, if I feel like my third shift is a little later than usual, the subsequent fourth shift also needs to be a little later than normal. This doesn't always work, but I seem to get the best results following these general guidelines. Remember how I said in the beginning that your optimal shift points are most likely slightly different than mine based on a difference in connections. Also keep in mind that your connection might change slightly as the minigame goes on. The shift patterns that work for you for the first 10 minutes might not be the same as the next 10. It all comes down to practice, and even more practice. The more games you play, the more you'll be able to tweak and experiment with slightly different shift positions, and the better you'll get at figuring out what your optimal positions are. However, knowing that holding down at around the 2 to 1 second mark at the start and having your first shift be just at or slightly after the beginning of the green, your second shift at the middle, your third at the end just as you're starting to bounce, and your fourth after a few bounces, you'll have a good starting point to work off of and win against a lot more of the casual players. And that's all you need to know about how to optimally play and win at the Atlas Earth Racing minigame. If you like this guide and learned something new, be sure to give this video a like and comment. And if you want to follow me and what I post, you can always subscribe to my channel. I post a lot of Atlas Earth content as well as other videos about my various interests if you want to give them a look. But for now, thank you all so much for watching. I'm me, Cynic's Pipe Dream, and I'll see you in the next video where I'll be going over the fishing minigame. Bye everyone!